All right, let's get right into it. We're about to dive deep into the confession of one of horror's most iconic figures. But forget everything you think you know about vampire bites. This creature was born from something way more chilling, a signature on a diabolical contract. We're starting with the creature's own words, and right away, you see where his curse comes from. This wasn't some random affliction or a bite in the night. No, this was a legal document. He calls it a curagriffum, and he didn't sign it with ink. He signed it with his own blood, literally binding his soul to this thing he calls the void. And here it is, the first major bombshell. His master, this infernal prince named Belial, gives him a new name. And it's not Nosferatu, it's Nesuferitor, a Romanian word that actually means the insufferable one. This one quote just completely shatters that whole romantic vampire image, doesn't it? He's not some seductive, brooding aristocrat. He's a vessel for a demonic seed, a walking plague, forever tied to the shadow of the rat and all the pestilence that comes with it.
Okay, so if his real name is Neseferitl, then where in the world did Nosferatu come from? Well, it turns out the name we all know is something of a ghost itself.
So, the name we're all familiar with, it actually entered the English language back in 1885. A Scottish author, Emily Gerard, introduced it. She claimed Nosferatu was the Romanian word for vampire, but as modern linguists figured out, she was almost certainly mistaken. The source material shows us that Romanian peasants used totally different words, like nesuferito or necuratol, which means the unclean one. And these weren't really names, they were euphemisms. You see, they believed that saying the devil's true name would summon him, so they used these stand-in titles as a kind of linguistic shield.
So here's the bottom line. The creature's title is what you'd call a linguistic phantom. It's a ghost word, born from a simple translation error. But it got so famous, so huge, that it completely buried the authentic folklore it was supposed to be describing. Kind of wild, right?
All right, let's dig into that original folklore. Let's see how this creature was actually understood by the people who feared it long before it ever hit the big screen. You see, in the original folklore, the vampire wasn't some foreign count. It was local. It was the child of illegitimate parents, whose birth itself was seen as a sin. And after death, this being was cursed to come back and prey on its own family, spreading this spiritual and physical rot from the inside out. I mean, this slide just lays it out perfectly. On one side, you have the original folkloric creature, a symbol of uncleanness, of disease, and on the other, the pop culture icon we all know, a symbol of gothic romance and seduction. You really couldn't get two more different beings. Now, this kind of theological horror isn't just a biological accident or some random curse. Its entire existence is governed by a terrifyingly specific legal document, a contract with hell itself. This instrument of binding, the chirographium, is the source of all its power and all its damnation. It's a pact that was made with Belial, who isn't just some run-of-the-mill demon, but the lord of the empty spaces, a kind of cosmic nihilist. Okay, let's look at the devil's fine print, shall we? The contract, signed in blood, grants him command over pestilence in exchange for giving up the sun forever. But, and this is the big one, that fatal clause is everything. Sunlight doesn't just weaken him, it instantly terminates the contract. Poof, his body turns to dust, and his soul, it's immediately forfeited, sent straight to Belial's temple. The deal is final, no appeals. So how did this very specific, very legalistic, theological monster get brought to life? Well, let's look at the groundbreaking 1922 silent film that started it all. The filmmakers, especially the producer Albin Groh, were really into the occult. And they made a very deliberate choice. They decided not to adapt Bram Stoker's suave, charming Dracula. Instead, they wanted to bring this much older, much more grotesque vision of the vampire to the screen. And that is why Count Orlok looks the way he does. The rat-like features, that skeletal face, it was all designed to make him look like a walking carrier of the Black Death. He's a physical manifestation of plague, tying directly back to that dominion of pestilence in his contract. Now here's a strange twist of fate. The story of this undead creature, is perfectly mirrored by the unbelievable survival story of the film itself.
So even with all the changes, the movie was still way too close to Dracula. Bram Stoker's widow, Florence, sued the studio for copyright infringement, and she won. The film was legally condemned to death.
Get this, the order wasn't just to pull it from theaters. The court demanded that every single copy of the movie be hunted down and destroyed by fire. The goal was to wipe it from existence, to literally erase it from history. But, just like the plague it showed on screen, the film couldn't be contained. A few illicit copies had already been smuggled out of Germany. The film, just like its monster, refused to stay in the grave.
This incredible, accidental survival is exactly what cemented its legacy. It became a foundational horror icon, precisely because it survived its own court-ordered execution. The myth became just as immortal as the monster itself. And so we come back to the creature's own confession. He doesn't see himself as a tragic hero or some romantic figure. He is, in his own words, an inversion of life, a parasite that has to destroy the day just to get through the endless night.
The film and the monster were both sentenced to death, and yet here they are, still enduring. It really makes you wonder, why are we so fascinated by the specific vision, not one of romance, but of a cold, disease-ridden, nihilistic horror that continues to haunt the dark corners of our imagination?